And I'm being joined by my colleague and friend Karthik Malhotra in the studios, and we are discussing something that we all love, but something that we all love, is a lot of it is churning over there. And we're talking about the OTT platforms that we all love. And if you've been watching the news, Karthik, it's all been about restriction on password sharing and how it's all about how to derive the maximum revenue from the user, and that inconveniencing many of us. And that's also because there's a price war that is taking place in the OTT space, especially with the arrival of Jio Cinema, Reliance's Jio Cinema app that has literally ruffled all the feathers in the industry with the kind of content that they will put out, especially with their IPL partnership. And of course, now getting access to all the HBO content that is out of the Disney Hotstar platform. So there's content wars and price wars happening. And of course, now you have Amazon responding to that, all that HBO content that the Jio Cinema has, by bringing in all the BBC content that it can bring. So lots churning, lots heating up in the OTT space in India, isn't it, Karthik?
Yes, Krishna. And you mentioned price wars and you mentioned content wars. I think at some level we are also talking about the war for survival. And this is where Disney plus Hotstar comes in. Yeah. What happens to Star? And who is going to eventually bail out Disney in the mess that it finds itself with respect to Star? And Star, of course, was previously owned by Fox, 21st Century Fox, which got bought by Disney. And all of this, I think, happened at a time when Bob Iger was exiting the company and the other Bob Chapek, was entering. And Disney transformed itself into more of a distribution company as opposed to a company which produces content. And the focus shifting and the pivot that we saw in the case of Disney resulted in these acquisitions of 21st Century Fox, in spending a lot on distribution and reaching a point that the whole operation became unsustainable, to a point that last year, in fact, from last year till now, Disney has fired as many as 7,000 people globally. Right. Its core businesses are not shaping up. They are not really releasing any new content. They haven't really been able to keep up to their creative levels and expectations that market had from them. And the whole game has now shifted purely to OTT distribution, which is a cash burn model. But not just for Disney and Hotstar, it is a cash burn model for the rest of them as well. And that is where Netflix comes in, and Netflix says, hey, stop sharing passwords. Now, that strategy worked very well in the US and in the West, in European markets, where Netflix saw an increase in revenue, about 8% or so increase in revenue, and therefore even margins. But I think the whole battle is being fought on ARPU, average revenue per user. So even though Disney plus Hotstar commands, let's say if you take India as a market, Disney plus Hotstar commands about 52 million subscriber base, as compared to Amazon Prime, which is just about 20 million or so. Jio Cinema being next at about 10 million, Netflix just about at about 6 to 7 million. Now, these are numbers which otherwise make you feel that, hey, Disney plus Hotstar, of course, has got the biggest audience. Right. But I think it had the biggest audience on the back of the acquisition of Star and the 40,000 crore rupees that it spent on IPL rights up until last year. Right. And this year, that game has completely shifted to Jio Cinema, who offered not just IPL, but even the FIFA World Cup for free, and then launches its subscription plan by taking away the HBO content from Disney plus Hotstar and putting it on Jio Cinema. So I think the larger question is, which of these players are going to survive? Which of them are going to make revenue? Right. And what are the kind of profitabilities that they would eventually be able to command?
Yeah, revenues and profitabilities, both at this stage. Big question marks. We have Mr. Dilip Chedian, in fact, joining us on the broadcast. Dilip, and if we can have you, I want to ask you a very simple question. Like everything else, when Reliance enters a business, it just changes the game altogether. Jio's arrival has changed so many things, and you're seeing the response already. Amazon is bringing in the BBC content in a response to all the HBO content that Jio has. But whatever said and done, that revenue per user figure needs to go up, and then, of course, profitability consequently.
I think that perhaps we may be looking at the wrong metrics. I agree that there is a big game to be played as far as content is concerned, but that is no longer the game when you have somebody like Jio in the game. When you have Jio in the game, they, for example, have a calculation that if anybody watches an entire IPL match, the kind of bandwidth that they consume gives them an additional revenue. So the game has now shifted to those who are able to sell not just one product, but multiple products, not just get one revenue stream, but multiple revenue streams. So the ARPU game carries on up to a certain point. But if your only game is content and the revenue that comes from that, that revenue stream may no longer be the basis of calculation on which Reliance alters the market space.
So, Dilip, how would this game pan out for those companies which are purely in the OTT business and not really in the business of data, internet, broadband?
That is the question. The fact is that those in the pure OTT business will probably have to move up the value ladder and look at stuff which people want to pay money for. There is the question as to whether the Indian consumer is already spoiled silly as a result of the kind of offers that many people have had, the kind of password sharing that many people have allowed, the kind of expectations of Indian plus self-generated content, all of that. But I think that the game will now pretty much begin to divide itself between those players who have the additional digital revenue space, which comes from the selling of web usage, compared to those who only have one revenue stream.
Right, stay with us, Mr. Cherry, and we also have Mr. Lloyd Matthias joining us. Lloyd, thank you so much, as always, for taking time out to be with us. We're discussing how these OTT wars are playing out. In your view, how do you see the industry, the business progressing forward? Because we're asking this question simply because Netflix tried restricting password sharing in the US. It worked. Subscriptions, the revenues went up by 8%. We're worried that that might not replicate itself in India. If that, being the case, that's the first measure to increase that revenue per user figure to stop password sharing. Even if that is not going to work in India, if that's going to, have a negative impact, how do you, do this business going forward?
I think like in any industry, I think there's a point when the one big disruption happens. I think the first time was when, Netflix and Amazon Prime made their grand entrance, and created world-class production. I think Jio, as always, is now going to create the next level of disruption. I think in basic terms, what it means is that suddenly, we saw it, what they really did, first with the FIFA, which was still small, but then with IPL, which meant they suddenly made OTTs free. And, having people wanting to watch the IPL had, good choice to go to Jio Cinema. And that really, in a sense, upset the broadcaster, right? So Star Sports, which had the TV rights, saw a big drop in their viewership because people understandably a lot of them watched it for free on Jio Cinema. So I think similarly, what they're hoping to do right now is really use the pile of content and relationships they build up, using their last mile connectivity, and the fact that 4G and 5G have actually made internet all pervasive to actually grow the entire pie for OTTs. They obviously will over time grab their share. I think in the larger interest, it will work for consumers, because then you're talking about the OTT pie being much larger than what was hitherto a very kind of niche segment.
Fair enough. That's more choice. That's more choice. But what if all the choice comes with restrictions, like you can't share password? You can be sitting in the same house, but you can't be sharing passwords with with your family members. That's the kind of inconvenience that no matter how many OTT platforms are out there, people will not be willing to download them or want to go use them, because every single time every person does it, they have to pay for it.
Yeah, I think, Krishna, the way it works is that most of them will, over time, give you a password that's, let's say, valid for a group group viewing, right? And it'll adapt itself over time. So in the US, maybe it's a lot more individual. In India, they might have the concept of family passwords. But I think it's a perfectly understandable and rational business strategy for a content owner to monetize his content to the best possible way. Right? We can't be prescriptive about the fact that you've got to let anyone watch it. In that case, no one will go, everyone will just use a password. One password can be shared by an entire condo or a whole complex or a whole neighborhood. So I think that's a reasonable business objective.
We also have Mr. Karan Tarani, Senior Vice President and Research Analyst at Elara Capital, joining us. Karan, talk to us, about, what is your take on this entire OTT wars in heating up in India, especially with the arrival of Jio?
So I think if you look at the OTT landscape in a country like India, it's highly fragmented. We've got 40 plus platforms in the country today. We are seeing early signs of consolidation. We've seen Voot getting merged into Geo Cinema. We're also seeing Amazon is in talks with MX Player for a potential acquisition. Now what has happened herein is that the platforms are kind of structurally moving towards the ad way because Geo Cinema, offered premium content like IPL, which is the most expensive content in the home cricket free of cost, right? So I think we were in a phase where, audience was just kind of getting used to pay for content. But because the move by Geo Cinema was so disruptive in terms of nature, is that, the other peers are also following that now. If you see Hotstar, I think they are also offering, the World Cup free of cost. So I think there is clear pressure in terms of subscriber growth. There's clear pressure in terms of revenue and scale. As far as Amazon partnership with BBC is concerned, I think it's a clear signal that every OTT platform needs to kind of expand their horizon in terms of content offering. We've seen that with Geo Cinema, they've got tie up with HBO and Warner. So whatever kind of content is there in terms of global studios or whatever is there, one really needs to get that content into India. And I think none of these platforms today, like if you look at HBO Max or if you look at globally, we've got BBC also having their own app. None of these platforms right now are in any mood to launch their app in a country like India, which is so price sensitive, so highly fragmented, high content cost, economics not supportive. So I think partnership is the way ahead. So two things will emerge. One is you see a structural trend wherein many other OTT platforms actually move to AVOD or probably they reduce the prices because of the competitive intensity and the competition giving content free of cost. And the second big move will be some minor signs of consolidation. If not consolidation, some sort of partnership models, like you probably have Amazon tying up with some other platform, in terms of distribution of content. Because I think the broader market is going to be dominated by 5 or 6 players who will account for the lion's share. At one end, you've got Amazon, Netflix, which are the global giants, which will kind of be here always, and they'll continue to scale up. At one end, you'll have solid broadcasting propositions like Z Sony, subject to regulatory approvals. They can come together as a platform. We have got Disney Plus already, which is there. Geo Cinema Voot, which is again a formidable telco and a broadcast player, which is there. So
Right,
you will
Karan.
find these 6, 7 apps actually commanding a lion's share in terms of OT ecosystem, followed by a large.
Right, Karan, thanks. Just stay with us. I'll just take this discussion back to Dilip Cherian. Dilip, help us understand here what is going to happen to Disney Plus Hotstar and the whole Star basket. Now, obviously, we know that Disney is facing tremendous pressure on its balance sheet, on its P&L internationally. And in this market, Karan is talking about consolidation and partnership. Who do you see the whole Star basket consolidating or partnering with? Who's eventually going to buy it? Because if it is Geo Cinema, then we are talking about, of course, a huge plethora, magnitude of a large entertainment company emerging. We are pretty sure it is unlikely to be Sony because Sony is already in talks with Z, and we don't know how that story is going to pan out. It is still
or we don't know how that story is going to pan out.
So eventually, who's going to bail out Star, and what happens to Star?
I think Karan is right that we will see two phases. One where there will be consolidation of the existing players and unlikelihood of any new players. And the second phase will see what you are positing, which is a possibility of an emergence of a behemoth. Now, whether that will pass all the regulatory frameworks is not clear. Also, don't forget that the other thing that we are not taking into account is that the telecom sector only now has about 2 players. So those who are in the business of getting revenue by selling bandwidth is also limited.
So are you suggesting it's going to be Airtel? Are you suggesting it's going to be Airtel if Jio is out of the fray? Would it be Airtel which is a likely contender for Star?
If they had both the vision and the money, they should be. But we don't know what their business plans are, and many analysts have said that for Airtel, given the fact that their mother business could be at any point of time in jeopardy, they need to focus on that. Maybe better management advice will prevail. But what I'm saying essentially is that the kind of direction that Karan pointed out is the direction we should be looking for the next round of action in. Consolidation first, before some gigantic behemoth emerges.
Okay, Lloyd, consolidation seems to be the flavor here right now. Both Karan and Dilip talking about consolidation, and we are talking about telcos, and we are talking about service providers in the ISP internet space. There were also rumors about Tata Play likely to be a contender to pick up Star. Do you think that is too far-fetched, or is it in the realm of possibility?
Who's that for me?
Difficult to.
That's for Lloyd. Dilip, that's for Lloyd.
Yeah.
Difficult to speculate on Star's future, and there are various things up in the air. The little point of disagreement I have with what Karan said is that I do agree that we are in a phase of consolidation. I do agree that a couple of big global players will hold on, Amazon Prime and Netflix, obviously. And of course, there'll be 3 or 4 mega players. I also believe that the future of OTT is going to be a range of small, niche, micro channels. Because to an extent, once internet penetration is all pervasive with 5G, and once you're talking about 500 to 600 people who can afford or who can get onto OTT, there'll be a lot of people following small passion-led OTTs. There could be one for car lovers, there could be one Haryanvi channel. So I think with language, with geography, with interest passions, I think there could be a whole long tail of OTT channels that could still be very viable. So while I do agree there'll be consolidation at the top end, there will be, let's say, 3 or 4 mega players, I think there's enough room for a lot of smaller players to continue in, in the OTT.
Okay, before we come back to Karan, Dilip, I know you are on a timer, so I'll take your last question to you right now, and we'll continue with the discussion. One piece of advice to Bob Iger, who finds himself in very troubled waters as an image guru, as a management guru. What is your piece of advice to Bob Iger? What should he focus on? Content creation, content distribution, or diversify into internet services?
Diversify into internet services, without a doubt. Tie up with Elon Musk and see whether Starlink is the answer.
All right.
Oh, it's fascinating.
Starlink as the answer to OTT.
Yeah. Okay, that combination is interesting. Starlink plus Bob Iger and Disney, that's a great.
And Star and Starlink also have a sort of wordplay attached.
Yeah,
right?
there you go. It's okay. If wishes were horses, if wishes were horses, I'm at this stage. But Dilip Cherian, thank you so much for taking time out to be with us on the discussion. Let me take this back to Mr. Karan Taurani, who continues to be with us. Karan, talk to us. Okay, consolidation, right? Who do you see emerging as the winner? Eventually.
So if you look at the OTT market broadly, as I told you, the market is going to go 2 ways. One is SVOD, which is global giants like Netflix, Amazon, which are pure SVOD players. Other way is going to be the free, which is Jio Cinema and the other OTT apps which are there. And then there is freemium, which are broadcast OTT giants which are there. Obviously, one can't forget YouTube. So if you add that into the video OTT market, YouTube actually has got a lion's share. They command anywhere close to about 65 to 70% of the overall video advertising market as a whole. Now, just to put the numbers in perspective, the fight is going to be very high, between these other players which I mentioned to you, specifically in terms of the advertising part. So Netflix, Amazon is SVOD, so we just move on that part later. But in terms of advertising part, it's a very fierce competition, because as I told you, that 70% of your video advertising in a country like India goes to YouTube, which is the largest aggregator, and that is here to stay, because YouTube again has got a very huge plethora of content, and I don't see other OTT platforms gaining market share at the cost of YouTube, right? It is just that the fight will happen between them. So whatever Disney would make in terms of IP will probably potentially move to Jio Cinema. Whatever some other platform would make in terms of catch-up TV content would move to somebody else in terms of market share. So it's a fight within themselves. So the pie is very small. So just to throw some numbers, the overall OTT market, excluding YouTube, is not more than 10 to 15%. And that number is also growing quite handsomely by 30-35%. But the fight is between them. It's a very fierce competition. And to move beyond that, one OTT platform really needs to scale up. Right now, let's say the example, hypothetically, a Jio Cinema really scales up in a very big way. And potentially Jio Cinema hits a number of close to...
Right, Karan, hold your thought there. I'll just take this discussion back to Lloyd. Lloyd, what is the future? Is the future then what Karan is talking about, advertising linked AVOD? or is subscription still going to drive, SVOD is still going to drive OTT platforms? And is there a possibility of both to exist? For example, Netflix last year had announced that it is likely to introduce ads in its lowest plan at 99 rupees or something in India. You didn't see that take off. So do you think there is a possibility now to explore AVOD and SVOD both working in tandem, that you take a cheaper subscription or a free subscription plan and you watch ads, or you think that is going to ruin the whole OTT experience if ads are bunched in?
I would think, as always, India will have to be a hybrid model. To have purely a video on demand service that's subscription based, SVOD service, may be a little too far-fetched. And like we've seen, a lot of global platforms had to tweak their business models. So I think the future would be, quite advertising driven. I think consumers are going to exchange their attention, so to speak, with advertising for better or freer or discounted content. So I think the mixture is true. The other point I want to make, and I think which is significant, is that when any mass disruption happens, I think the benefit accrues to the consumer and therefore to the entire ecosystem. We saw this play out in 2016-17 when Jio came and disrupted telecom, right? And that in a sense resulted in the next wave of internet services and a whole lot of platforms that became viable. Because suddenly you're talking about hundreds of millions of 300 to 400 million people who could actually access internet services. I think OTT is on the cusp of that phase. I do believe in the next year or so, the number will go dramatically. I think Karan talked about a 35% growth. And while YouTube will continue to dominate, just given the range of content and user-generated content, so to speak, I think it will allow for places right through. As people get used to watching a lot more stuff on demand on YouTube, they will over time then start subscribing to channels that give them specialized and value-added content.
Right. Lloyd, stay with us. We've done this deep dive into all the OTT wars. It's time to come back to the surface. Lloyd, stay with us, and Karan as well, stay with us, because it is a Friday after all, Karthik.
Thank God.
Thank God. First of all, it's Friday. Yes. Usually on Fridays, what happens is that we go and choose what to watch on OTT. Okay, what releases on this Friday on your favorite OTT platform. And this is one of those, beautiful weekends where there's so much choice at the movie theater.
Right.
And one of the greatest ever clashes at the global box office that actually there's been a name given to it. It's called the Barbenheimer. It's called the Barbenheimer simply because, Barbie the movie and Oppenheimer the movie are releasing as we speak, have released already. Morning shows have already been, the reviews are out with all the preview shows as well. Karthik, but we're going to discuss, I know both of us love Oppenheimer, but the story really here is about Barbie to start with, because here is a toy that literally almost nobody in the world doesn't know the name of. Everybody,
True.
Everybody in the world
Every
knows.
girl, every boy, every parent, every teacher, every brand expert, everybody knows.
Every continent, every language, every culture. There is a Barbie for everybody over there. So Barbie, everybody connects with the Barbie. And in fact, I'm surprised it took so long to make a movie out of Barbie. And what a movie that it is that has been released, mainly because, forget about the review for the movie. Here is a movie directed by an Oscar-nominated filmmaker and scriptwriter called Greta Gerwig, who recently was Oscar-nominated a couple of years ago at the Oscars for Little Women, the film adaptation of the American classic novel Little Women. She's back at the movies, and who is starring in this Barbie movie? No less than Margot Robbie as Barbie. Alongside, we have none other than Ryan Gosling playing Ken doll as well. So, this is it's a highly built movie, Karthik. This is not some random Barbie movie that's hitting the movie theaters. This is a highly built, top-class technicians, top-class directors, filmmakers, star cast, etc., that's hitting the movie theaters. And as we speak, is actually beating Oppenheimer at the opening weekend box office. Starting with India, where I think, your tickets are already booked, Karthik.
My tickets are booked, and I'm wearing a pink shirt and I'm wearing a black jacket. So I think the whole Barbenheimer, I'm dressed for it. I think I'm going to watch both of them. Yeah. But yes, I have a daughter, and I think Barbie has taken precedence for us to go into the theater and watch. But you're right. I think both highly anticipated films, both films extremely, high on production values, great star cast, great directors, great sets. I think there is pretty much everything that goes as an ingredient into making good quality entertainment cinema is cutting across both these films, right? Now, I think, yeah, you're right. And the trend that we are picking up is that it's one of those rare occasions that you don't have a franchisee built on characters from a movie, and you don't have merchandise built on the character of a movie, but it's pretty much reverse engineering. And we've seen very few instances of that in the past. In fact, I think G.I. Joe was one of those characters. It was a toy character which turned into a film. Not a great film, if you ask me, honestly. But yeah, you're right. I think Barbie has cut across generations. It has cut across cultures, and it has transformed and metamorphosed itself also into multiple avatars. I mean, I remember when we were growing up, and when my sister used to play with a Barbie, it was that typical fair-skinned, blonde-haired Barbie, and that's all what we knew Barbie to be. And over decades, over generations, Barbie has transformed itself into multiple skin tones, multiple dressing attires, and has adapted to these cultural shifts and these requirements of a new sort of less gender bias, less stereotyping sort of a role model. But yeah, I mean, has Barbie really continued to be the kind of popular cult figure, the kind of following it used to have? I don't know, but I think we've got a young guest joining us who should be able to tell us her experiences with Barbie. While Lloyd listens in before we go back to
we have Samaira Agnihotri, 9-year-old Samaira joining us. Samaira, thank you so much for being with us, for talking to us. I just want to ask you something very simple. Since when did you start playing with your Barbie doll that we see behind you?
Since I play Barbie world since I was 3 years old. I have this huge dollhouse on the third floor Barbie lives. On the second floor her sisters live. On the third floor her pets live. And I also watch this show Barbie Life on the Dream House on Netflix.
Wow.
Whoa, I didn't know that. Samaira, hi, nice to meet you. Tell us something. Are you looking forward to going and watching the Barbie movie, or your parents don't want to take you?
I'm very excited to go there. My parents are allowing me to go there finally.
Are they taking you? Have they booked tickets? Are you sure?
Yes, tomorrow they've booked tickets.
Oh, tomorrow. So packed theatres in India, Karthik, for sure, literally.
Yeah, literally. I think packed theatres. And Samaira, I just want to understand from you, these Barbie characters, how many Barbie dolls do you have to begin with? I see only one. I see only three.
That's
actually.
An entire dollhouse behind her.
Can you show us these three Barbies? We want to understand, do they look similar or do they look different?
Show us your favorite Barbie.
This one.
Oh, this is your favorite Barbie. Pink Barbie. The classic.
And this is her best friend.
Oh, the mermaid Barbie.
Okay, and there are a few more also. Just pull them all out. Show us what all do you have. This is the Barbie range. These are the cultural differences I was talking about, Krishna.
This is her sister Stacy.
Oh, that's Barbie's sister Stacy.
This is her youngest sister Chelsea.
Wow, it's an entire family.
And this is Stacy, her sibling.
Okay, and the Skipper also, right? I don't see Skipper in your collection. Oh, that's Skipper. Okay, hi Skipper.
Hello, Skipper.
Lloyd, let's take this to you. This is the generation, and this is one of the many generations that have actually grown up playing with Barbies, playing with dolls in their doll houses. What does this tell you as a branding, marketing sort of segment? A toy maker getting into celluloid and getting into taking this brand extension forward in a reverse sort of a way. That is not a film character which is being merchandised, but this reverse sort of marketing of a character having a film based on.
I think it's truly, one of the iconic franchises of the last 70 odd years. Samaira, thank you for sharing those lovely visuals. But I can tell you there's a range of women all the way into their 60s who have great childhood memories of their first Barbie. So in a sense, it's, to my mind, truly a big cultural development across the world. And therefore, I really see this movie being a super hit. Because for a lot of people, it's actually reliving their memories of as being a young kid. Right? And therefore, that nostalgia that brands are keen to play on is actually a huge, huge opportunity. right? And I've been seeing some of the things that have been done. I was googling a bit of around the movie yesterday, and the moment you Google Barbie or the movie, Google breaks into pink sparkles, right? I was reading about some of the interesting things. Airbnb have actually opened Barbie's Malibu Dream House, so there's a real world version of that. So I think the opportunity that a franchise with so much emotion, so much of nostalgia for an entire generation of women or many generations of women, I think is truly big. And some of the global sponsorships have really taken it to a different level. I think what Airbnb did was outstanding. I think Google's breaking into pink sparkles is fantastic. I've been seeing some of the things. Crocs have got a whole collection pink Crocs around the Barbie franchise. Baskin Robbins have got a special Barbie flavored ice cream. So I think to my mind, it's really a coming together of pop culture, nostalgia, and a truly iconic brand franchise.
I see Samaira nodding along. Samaira, have you had the ice cream and all the things that Mr. Lloyd Matthias here is saying?
Yes, the Baskin Robbins Barbie ice cream, I've had that.
Oh, wow.
Fascinating. And anything else that you're looking forward to? Because, is Barbie does she always have to be pink? Is it a color, fixation, or you like any color Barbie, any color dress?
Any color. She's okay in all the colors, but she's okay mostly in pink only.
So the filmmakers have gotten it right.
The filmmakers have gotten it right.
Correct. There's so many Barbies, but the pink Barbie is the best Barbie, and that's the
and the
Barbie
pink sparkles. Anytime you type, so when Lloyd was mentioning, I just typed Barbie, and actually, my screen broke into these sprinkles of pink.
Samaira, did you do Google search and saw the pink sparkles of Barbie?
Yes.
Samara has seen it as well. It's fascinating.
But Lloyd, let me take this to the more boring part of the discussion, right? I think fun and games are all great, but the more boring part, the numbers part. Do you think, as a business model, at some point, did you see this whole journey of Barbie really stagnating? Because some of the numbers that we see, let's say the total revenue of Mattel toys, if you look at the total revenue in 2013, it was commanding a $6.5 billion revenue pie, which reduced in 2018 to 4.5, which increased marginally in 2022 to 5.4. But Barbie's contribution has been more or less stagnant, 1.2, 1.1, 1.5. It hasn't really grown as a pie in the overall revenue of Mattel toys. And let's pull up some other graphics also which we have of toys in general, where we'll see that the brand Barbie is actually still fairly far behind. Let's say when we talk about brands like Lego or brands like Fisher Price. If we can pull up those graphics, I think it'll try and put this in perspective that even a video game brand out of China called Bandai Namco is and look at the margin first between Lego and the rest of them. But even in the second, third, and fourth spots, Barbie has not really been able to be a close number 2, leave alone being number 1. What went wrong with the Barbie story?
I would say one element really is it's a cultural phenomenon, right? The fact that electronics have become an important part of young people's lives, right? For a whole generation in the 70s and 80s, playing with static toys was the done thing. I think now there's a lot of other avenues of entertainment, right? Kids can watch things, they can watch their electronic items, they can watch movies. So I think the opportunity spectrum has grown, and therefore that pressure is understandable. Having said which, I think what Mattel has done with the reinvention over time to keep Barbie contemporary has been pretty impressive. But I do agree that there's a cultural phenomenon, and to some extent, dolls as a plaything for young people have become a limiting factor.
Right. We also have Karan still with us. Karan, if I can quickly ask you, what do you think is the impact of Barbie, the movie, on the brand value of Barbie going forward?
So I think Barbie as a brand, of course, with the millennials coming in, I mean, we have seen a change in terms of, the habits and the usage of merchandise which is there. But I think Barbie will be a very, very big crowd puller for audience in the age of 30s and early 40s. I think because these are the consumers who have actually played with Barbie for a long, long time in terms of their childhood. So just as we saw Mario doing well globally, doing $200 million plus kind of box office, we are going to see similar trends for Barbie as well, as far as global numbers are concerned. In terms of India market, I think Barbie, should do well, but not, reach that 120 crores kind of box office mark. I think Barbie will somewhere settle towards, 40 to 45 crores kind of box office mark, and that's primarily because, of the brand value of Barbie. Now, again, the numbers can breach these estimates of 40, 45 crores basis how the content is. So apparently what we hear is that there is a messaging in the film, about feminism and about that, how females are basically. So I think if that were to be the case, if the film, apart from a strong recall in terms of the branding of Barbie, it has a very strong storyline as well in terms of content. You could see the numbers reaching our estimates. So Barbie definitely is estimated to do well, but not as well as the other large franchise like Fast and Furious or a Tom Cruise Mission Impossible, but definitely better than the other of the movies that we've seen in the Hollywood.
Right, fascinating point that Karan makes over there in terms of franchise. Yeah, because we're talking about other toys made into movies, Karthik. There is the Lego movie.
Lego movie.
G.I.
Joe.
Let's look at the report card. The Lego movie was a hit.
Yeah.
Released in 2014 was a hit to the point where there's another Lego movie. However, there was also Battleship, the game Battleship that got converted into a movie. It featured even Rihanna as well. But that just completely sank without a trace. That was a complete disaster.
Right. Yeah, now that you're mentioning it, I'm trying to recall. Did I watch the movie? I don't think I did.
No,
yeah. I remember seeing the posters for sure.
So G.I. Joe again as a franchise hasn't done as well as say the Lego movie. Whereas the one movie they're not discussing is Transformers. Transformers, again, a toy converted into a movie. The franchise has been an absolutely blockbuster franchise, as a movie, Karthik. And then you have Lego, you have a hit movie, a hit franchise over there again. More films expected. Mattel, in fact, is looking to convert many more toys and games into movies. In the pipeline, incidentally, there is the Magic 8 Ball converted into a movie. The Uno game converted into a movie. We have the Masters of the Universe, the classic He-Man and Skeletor.
Master of the Universe.
Yes,
yes.
That's the movies in the pipeline as well, Karthik. Masters of the Universe, Magic 8 Ball, Hot Wheels, more importantly. Hot Wheels, one of the most iconic toys.
Mattel, Uno and Hot Wheels both, I think.
All
Mattel,
of them are Mattel. They've in fact they've signed a deal, with production house to make this in movies. There are many more. These are some of the most iconic ones that we put out over there. It's fascinating that this entire story of toys turned into movies. How well they've done. And Barbie, like Karan is talking about, I can assure you on that, the messaging, the feminism and the messaging and the real reason for that, for pride, for both girls like Samara and women alike across the world. That messaging is very important. From what we understand, it's written and directed by Greta Gerwig, known for her strong women messaging through her movies, from Lady Bird to Little Women. It's going to, and the hope is that, Samara, it should appeal to both girls of all ages, right from your age to all the bigger girls as well.
Yes.
Right, and you will join us after you watch the movie and you'll tell us how well you like the movie as well, okay?
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you,
Samara, for joining us. Thank you, Samara, for talking to us as well. Enjoy the movie. Bye. Take care.
Thanks, Lloyd. Wonderful having you as well. And thanks, Karan. I think we've got a weekend very well chalked out, and everybody, not just
one
us.
thing we have to discuss, Karthik, because it's the phenomenon is called Barbenheimer.
Yeah.
Right. We discussed the Barbie. We have to discuss the Heimer, which is Oppenheimer. Fascinating film, one of the big avant-garde cinematic event. This is a cinematic event. That's a brand event. That's a toy event. This is a cinematic event. Christopher Nolan, the most iconic filmmaker from Hollywood since Steven Spielberg. People just go to a movie hall because it says directed by Christopher Nolan.
Correct.
His movie's releasing about the man who made the nuclear bomb. What a film event it is.
The Manhattan Project, Oppenheimer himself, of course. But which is your favorite Christopher Nolan film?
So
Interstellar, Dunkirk.
It's a
Dark Knight.
I would say
it's tough to choose, right?
It's tough to choose. I
was just thinking, if you're going to ask me that question, it would be such a difficult pick. So I preempted by asking you.
Good one. And Oppenheimer, I'm being told, is the most non-Christopher Nolan-like film. It's a very straightforward film. There's nothing that you don't understand. They start saying that about Tenet, right? Like, Christopher Nolan, Inception, Tenet, they're going to confuse you and everything. This is very straightforward. You know the story already. You know how the story ends. But apparently still a fantastic spectacle. Again, it's not like, this is not comparable to Barbie in terms of numbers. Opening weekend, all eyes will be come Monday morning, Karthik, and see where they have landed between Barbie and Oppenheimer. Who beats who? For now, Barbie certainly has the lead at the box office.
And that's what I was reading. In fact, even in the early reports coming out in the US suggest that Barbie is going to walk away with about $110 million worth of collections.
Right.
Oppenheimer, less than half of that, about 50 million. So I don't know, 50 million seems a little difficult in comparison with 110. I think Oppenheimer is also going to reach somewhere near Barbie, would be my estimation. But the only advantage Barbie would have over Oppenheimer is that Oppenheimer is going to be for the slightly more older people, and every time you go and watch a film with your kids, with your family, it's likely to be Barbie rather than Oppenheimer, and that'll give it the sheer numbers.
You know what? The comparisons are absolutely pointless. That's another reason why we're doing this show. Barbenheimer might be a phenomenon, and it's a phenomenon because Barbie is important. It has its own standing as a movie to be at the movie theaters, just like Oppenheimer. They're two different things. They're apples and oranges. Go enjoy both apples and oranges, and have a fantastic
Pink apples
weekend.
and black oranges.
And with that, we'll let go of Karthik. Karthik, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you, Krishna. And I will make space for my colleague Suresh to come to give you the update on the markets, on Reliance Industries, and also, of course, Go First, likely to take off again.
Right, absolutely. So, you know what? Let's do that. The latest, even before we get to the markets, the news that's coming in is that Go First could be all set to take back to the skies because it is getting an approval from the Director General for Civil Aviation, DGCA. That's what we understand. Bear in mind, Go First went into voluntary insolvency proceedings that got it off the air, and proceedings have been on for months, and finally it looks like there is some clarity, there is some finality on when Go First could be taken to the sky. Suyash is with us in the studio. Suyash, talk to us. What are you picking up in terms of what's happening with Go First, and how soon can it come back to the skies?
Krishna, like as you just mentioned, the news is relatively new. We are still waiting for the updates to show up. So, I mean, sooner the better, right?
Okay, yeah, sooner the better. But 15 aircraft have been 15 aircraft and 114 flights a day is what the initial plan is. Those are the details that we're getting at this stage. But there is no date yet. That's one thing that all of those watching this broadcast should know, Suyash, because we all want that finality of a date. But the fundamental plan, prima facie, the plan has been approved for 14 aircraft. That's what we understand. We'll wait for more details on that front and hope that Go First gets a clear date as to when it can take to the skies, and that date is sooner than later. But let's then quickly get to the markets as well. Talk to us. A very important day for the markets because of a very important day for some marquee stocks as well, both Reliance and Infosys.
Yes, so Indian markets snapped its 6-day winning streak today. Now, it was primarily driven because of a fall in heavyweight stocks like Infosys, which has a 6% weightage in the Nifty index, and Reliance, which has about a 10 to 11% weightage in the Nifty and the Sensex index. And the selling was broad-based today, Krishna. So, at close, Sensex was down about 887 points. It closed 1.17% lower at 66,684 mark. Nifty ended 1.17% lower at 19,745 mark. Now the broader markets remained did fairly better than the headliners. Now Nifty small cap was an outlier. It rose about 0.72%, while the Nifty mid cap index fell about 0.36%. Now all sectoral indices on Nifty, barring Nifty Auto and Nifty Media, ended today's session in the red. The IT sector, which we saw was led by falls in Infosys and other IT heavyweights, fell about 4%, followed by the FMCG sector, which was down about 1%. Metal also fell about 1%, but the Nifty Capital Good Index was the outlier. It was up about 1.17%. Now, among individual stocks, Larsen & Toubro was the top gainer today. It gained about 3.91%, followed by ONGC, which was up 2%, NTPC, which gained about 1%. Now, on the other side, Infosys was the top loser today. It fell about 7.73%, followed by Hindustan Unilever, which was down 3.6%, HCL Tech, which dropped by about 3%.
Right, that's the roundup for the markets, and for the week. It's not the kind of week that we had last time around, isn't it?
Yes, so one of the things that we need to understand that the global sentiment towards equities has rather shifted over the past couple of days. Now, Nasdaq, which was on an 8-day winning rally, which has gained about 40% year to date in 2023, had its first major fall because of some disappointing results from some of the top IT giants over there. And a similar trend was seen over here. Infosys, which I mean, the profit figures were more or less in line with what the street expected, but the guidance cut was a big dampener for the market sentiment. And we have to understand that it not only highlights, because Infosys is the only one which comes out with its guidance, right? So again, it highlights how the discretionary spending in the BFSI segment has come down or expected to go down over the next few quarters.
Right. There's only one thing left to ask you, because we're wrapping up a week. The next week is going to be really crucial for the Reliance stock. Talk to us about what we can expect from Reliance. What is it looking like at this stage?
So Reliance is expected to give its quarterly results. So it has been like the last 2 weeks has been very active for the stock itself. Since July 8, when the record date was announced, which was yesterday for the demerger of Jio Financial Services, the stock gained about 8%, right? And then we saw the listing of the Jio Financial Services, which was much beyond the expectations of the street at about 261.85 rupees. Now, Reliance was under pressure today, and it has faced stiff resistance above at around 2700 to 2800 mark, and it has failed to break that levels over the past couple of years or so. Now, the Reliance, the earnings result, the results of the conglomerate is often not a major trigger for the stock itself, and as we have seen over the past few quarters, the stock has more or less reacted marginally to how the results have come out. This time around, Reliance is expected to report a muted set of numbers, primarily because of the sluggish performance of its oil to chemical business. Now, according to the estimates of about 10 analysts that we looked up, the consolidated net profit for the company is expected to drop by 10% year on year, and revenue is seen down 2% year on year. Sequentially, the fall in the bottom line is expected to be steeper at about 16%, while sales are seen at a mere 1%. Now, the oil to chemical vertical, which will be a dampener for the company, but other than that, the retail and the telecom business is expected to post a good set of numbers. Operating profit for the retail business is likely to remain strong, and according to estimates from the analysts, it is expected to grow by about 24% year on year based on the higher footfall. Now, Reliance Jio operating profit is likely to surge by 11% year on year, but it is expected to remain flat sequentially because of the higher additions of the subscriber base. Now, the ARPU, or the average revenue per user, is likely to remain flat at about 171 rupees.
Right. And with that, I'm afraid we've completely run out of time here on this particular edition of Business Plus. But thank you, Suyash, for joining in with all the market action. And of course, the action at Reliance Industries, India's largest company, and their results coming up, and how that could impact the stock going forward. And with that, we've completely run out of time over here. Thank you so much for all those who tuned in. This is Krishna Kumar signing off. Keep it with News 9.
मैं इमरान अहमद खान नियाजी सबके दिल से हल्फ उठाता हूँ.
When Imran Khan came initially into politics, he thought his personal popularity would be sufficient for him. It didn't happen.
The retired military generals are openly saying that Imran Khan is a better choice.
Imran Khan may have bitten a bit too much, more than what he can chew.
Implosion. This and more. Streaming on world's first news OTT. News 9 Plus. Download now.
3, 2, 1, now.
भारत मित्रता निभाना जानता है, तो आंख में आंख डालकर देखना और उचित जवाब देना भी जानता है.
our ideology of passive, defensive, reactive doesn't really help.
Time has come to convert it into a rocket force.
When you have tactical weapons with a 500-kilometer range, China's lines of communication are within striking distance.
It's a shot in the arm for India's rocket force dreams. Acquiring 120 Pralay ballistic missiles boosts India's defense preparedness against China. So far, India's ballistic missiles have been nuclear weapon carriers.